Hello and welcome. You're watching The Right Stand with me, Poonam Burde. Mahua Moitra is no longer a member of the Lok Sabha. She was expelled today after a motion moved by the government was adopted in the parliament. She has been expelled because she was found guilty by the ethics panel for taking gifts and cash in lieu of asking questions in the Lok Sabha. Now in October, that's when it all began. BJP Member of Parliament Nishikant Dubey, based on a complaint by lawyer Jai Anand Dehadrai, alleged that there was quid pro quo between Mahua Moitra and businessman Darshan Hiranandani, whose business interests conflicted with those of industrialist Gautam Adani. In an affidavit to the Ethics Committee on October 19th, Hiranandani claimed that Mahua provided him with her login and ID for the password for the Lok Sabha member's website so that he could post questions on her behalf as and when required. Now, Mahua herself has accepted to this before the Ethics Committee when she appeared before them. That prompted the panel to recommend her expulsion for unethical conduct and contempt of the House. Today, as the report was tabled in the Lok Sabha and motions were moved by the government, Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla spoke about how the world looks up to us to uphold democratic principles. We must set an example, is what he said. What followed was a heated debate that went on for close to 2 hours. It was only meant to be 30 minutes. That was before it was actually put to vote. Some of the opposition members of parliament even walked out during that vote. Their objections were many, from raising questions about the ethics panel's jurisdiction to asking why Mahua wasn't allowed to defend herself on the floor of the House. Before we get into the discussion here, let's take a look at what exactly transpired in the Lok Sabha earlier today.
लेकिन कई बार ऐसे अवसर आते हैं जब इस सभा को अपने प्रति, राष्ट्र के प्रति अपने कर्तव्यों के निर्वहन के लिए उचित निर्णय लेने होते हैं। माननीय सदस्यगण, संसदीय लोकतंत्र नियमों, उच्च मर्यादाओं से चलता है। ये सदन हमारे देश की सर्वोच्च पीठ है। पिछले 75 वर्षों की हमारी लोकतांत्रिक यात्रा में हमारे सदन की, हमारे लोकतंत्र की एक ऊंची मर्यादा स्थापित हुई है। इस सदन के उच्च मर्यादा और लोकतांत्रिक मूल्य ऐसे मूल सिद्धांत है जिसमें किसी प्रकार का कोई समझौता नहीं किया जा सकता।
कन्विक्शन और सेंटेंसिंग में फर्क है। जो एथिक्स कमेटी है वो ये तो सिफारिश कर सकती है कि कोई व्यक्ति गुनाहगार है या बेगुनाह है, पर एथिक्स कमेटी ये सिफारिश नहीं कर सकती कि उसको दंड क्या दिया जाना चाहिए। दिस इज अ फंडामेंटल डिस्टिंक्शन। दैट पावर लाइज विद दिस हाउस। द एथिक्स कमेटी एट बेस्ट कैन मेक अ रिकमेंडेशन that whether a person is guilty or a person is innocent. It is this house sitting as a jury.
47 times दुबई से इनका अकाउंट लॉगिन हुआ है, ये भी यहाँ रिपोर्ट में है। 6 बार यूके, यूएस, नेपाल, यहाँ से अकाउंट लॉगिन होके क्वेश्चंस अपलोड किए गए हैं। और ये चीज़ खुद माननीय सांसद महोदया ने एथिक्स कमेटी के ये एक्सेप्ट किया है कि उनका आईडी और पासवर्ड ये उन्होंने खुद मिस्टर हीरानंदानी को और उनके कंपनी के लोगों को दिया था। हम सभी सांसद, चाहे वो लोकसभा के हो या राज्यसभा के, वो फॉर्म पे साइन करते हैं और उसमें रूल्स में लिखा हुआ है कि हम हमारा आईडी और पासवर्ड किसी को शेयर नहीं कर सकते। रूल्स में लिखा है, हर संसद सदस्य उस पे साइन करता है। हम सबने साइन किया हुआ है। एक ही दिन में उनका अकाउंट लॉगिन होता है दिल्ली में, दुबई में, बैंगलोर में और यूएस में। तो यहाँ नेचुरल जस्टिस की बात कर रहे हैं, आप खुद रूल्स तोड़ रहे हैं।
The road for Mahua Moitra? Well, not. She has an option of appealing against this decision. She can say that this was an overreach by the Ethics Committee. She can also approach the courts of this country, pleading to overturn the decision based on the grounds of natural justice and principles of fair hearing. But the courts are known to have deferred views as far as such cases in the past went. Now, Mahua also stares at a criminal case. There is already a preliminary inquiry that has been filed against her by the CBI, which could be converted into an FIR now that the parliamentary proceedings against her have concluded. But that has not scared her into silence. In fact, it has only emboldened her to further fight back. And fighting with her is a united opposition.
any cash, of any gifts anywhere. It refused to summon the businessmen to orally testify. The recommendation of expulsion is based solely on the ground that I have shared my Lok Sabha portal login. There are no rules whatsoever to govern the sharing of logins. As the hearing of the Ethics Committee demonstrates, all of us MPs are conveyor belts to get questions from the public, from citizens, and to voice that in Parliament. The Ethics Committee has no power to expel. You have assumed the powers of a quasi-judicial authority and imposed a penalty on me that you have no power to do. You have disregarded due process, proportionality, and abused every tenet. This kangaroo court has only shown to the all of India that the haste and the abuse of due process you have used demonstrates how important Mr. Adani is to you and to what length you will go to harass a single woman MP into shutting her into submission. Nothing has been taken. You hate minorities. You hate women. You detest Nari Shakti. You cannot handle power and authority.
Now, MPs from opposition ranks marched with Mahua Moitra to protest what they called was a disgraceful decision. Could this have an impact on the next big electoral battle, which is 2024? Well, it could go either ways. What could happen is that this definitely gives the opposition an issue that binds them together. We've seen, especially in the aftermath of the recently held elections, there have been some differences that have come to the fore amongst the India bloc. Well, this could show that they can put their differences aside when it comes to fighting a common enemy, which is the BJP in this case. So that is something that could bring them further together. But if quid pro quo is proved, if the CBI inquiry does reach its logical conclusion before the 2024 elections, it could jeopardize the entire bloc because they stood with her when these allegations came to the fore. It could also put doubts in the minds of the voters whether their interests are actually being put forth by the elected representatives, by the people that they vote for, or is it just their own interests that are being looked into? That could put in a seed of doubt in their minds. It could also give the BJP and their charge that this is a coalition of corrupt steam. The BJP so far perhaps was just saying how the TMC supports its member of parliament and the TMC supports corruption. But now with this show of strength of the India bloc, the BJP would get further impetus to push forth with their coalition of corrupt allegation. So where exactly is this going to lead? The fact that India Alliance is backing Mahua Moitra, is this going to be a masterstroke for the opposition for 2024, or is this going to be misjudgment on their part? That's the big debate on The Right Stand tonight.
Hello, Moto.
Joining me on this debate, national spokesperson of the BJP, Shazia Ilmi, Mohammad Tausif Rahman, spokesperson of the TMC, political analysts, Anirban Banerjee and Tehseen Poonawala with me on this broadcast, and advocate of the Supreme Court, Ashwini Dubey, joins us as well. But let me begin this broadcast by asking the spokesperson of the TMC, Mr. Rahman, why do you say this is vendetta? Mahua Moitra herself has admitted to sharing her login ID and password. There is digital footprint to track that her login and password were used on the same day in multiple places.
Good evening, everyone. You see, first of all, I want to say that we are with Mahua Moitra. The whole Trinamool Congress is with Mahua Moitra. The India Alliance is with Mahua Moitra. And one thing is for sure, I'll come to your question again, but one thing is for sure, that this is anti-minority, this government. It's anti-women. Because if you again, like day before yesterday also, Giriraj Singh was like using some terms, thumka, against a woman who's a chief minister of Bengal. And today it's Mahua Moitra. I mean, if you see, I just want to know, a 495-page report was submitted in the parliament, and after that, they gave half an hour to all the leaders, and they decided, it was pre-decided, that you have to expel Mahua Moitra after giving 495 pages. You tell me something, even if it's half an hour, 1 hour, 2 hours, can you complete those 495 pages and take a decision and expel Mahua Moitra on that ground? And when opposition attacks that we have given her a chance of ethics panel committee, what was the question was asked to Mahua Moitra in that ethics panel? आप किसके साथ रहते हो? आपकी रात कहाँ गुजरती है? आपका क्या रिश्ता है? So these were the questions asked from Mahua Moitra. And thank God, we are proud that she walked away. Poonam, you see, it is totally a bizarre condition there is no democracy. I was hearing the honorable speaker talking about democracy. Is this a democracy where a victim has not been given a chance of 10 minutes to speak about herself or what she has done? I mean, this kind of democracy is there inside the parliament where we go and do the amendments of democracy. I mean, it's a very harsh thing. Of course, the course will take its own time. I do understand, but this is a black day. It's
Sure.
not appropriate. It's condemnable. I do understand. I mean, if she has done something, the court will take action. We are not supporting about that. You
Sure,
can
so
take her
let
to
me
the
get this
court
right. Your
anytime.
objection is the way in which this was done and not necessarily to the fact that she may actually have breached conduct as far as a member of parliament goes. Is that what you're trying to say?
No. See, if something is against the parliamentary course, of course you can take action. But you know, if someone is getting suspended from parliament, it's not ethical. You can't do that. The court will take the decision. How was Rahul Gandhi suspended? Who
Sure.
did that?
Sure.
And how
So
Mahua
it
Moitra
is
getting
the
suspended?
panel exceeding its brief. Whether or not Mahua Moitra did right or wrong, that's not something
no,
that the
no.
TMC wants to get into. Is that it?
I don't understand. I just don't understand. A woman standing there, a woman parliamentary MP from Trinamool Congress standing there. She's not been given a 10 minutes of chance to explain herself, to express her views, and she's getting suspended. You know what is the biggest crime inside the parliament right now in India? She belongs to Trinamool Congress, and she's a woman. This is the biggest crime.
Sure.
And BJP doesn't want any. No, it's a crime.
Sure.
We are from Trinamool
Sure, and
Congress, it's a
I'll have the
crime.
BJP
Mahua
respond to
Moitra
that.
is a
Shahzad
woman,
Elmi,
it's a crime.
whether or not she's actually guilty of the allegations she faces or not, that's not something that the TMC wants to get into. But this is not the jurisdiction of the ethics panel. They do not have jurisdiction to give punishment, and hence they cannot expel her. That really seems to be the objection here.
So a lot of things were said and I would like to answer them point wise. First of all, the committee is an extension of the House and this is the mandate of the House because this is the recommendations of the committee. There have been 13 other such suspensions of certain other MPs from the parliament following the same precedent. And if you were to read as to what happened in not just 52 but as late as 2005, you would know that this is exactly how the parliament works. This is exactly how the House works. Second, I heard some very
What happened with Ramesh
very
Bidori,
random things
Shazia ji?
being said
Mr.
about
Rahman,
Mahua
Mr.
being a
Rahman, you
woman.
had your time.
Mahua
Let
being-
Miss
be quiet.
Elmi speak.
Yeah. So let me tell Mr. Rahman that the constitution of just not our country but all countries in the world is the same when it comes to matters of corruption, impropriety, and the rules remain the same for men and for women. To use the woman card at this point of time and to talk about misogyny is simply obfuscating from the real issue and playing victim card to play to the galleries, which makes you look so pathetic and sad. Just because you're a woman, you're not allowed to do corporate lobbying as an MP. No.
Mr. Rahman, I'll give you your time to rebut. You had enough time to make your point. Please let her respond.
Yes. So the point about a woman MP comes in, it has nothing to do with a woman or a man. Either a man or a woman or a transgender is not, or a cisgender. Again, he's speaking. I mean, please ask
Mr. Rahman, this is not whether the member of parliament was a woman or not. The subject at hand is whether there was a breach of conduct by a member of parliament.
It's a breach of conduct. Why don't you take Mahua Moitra to the
can I
court?
just have some interruption?
Sure, and that will happen when the CBI. That will happen when the CBI does its inquiry, which is going to happen sooner than later. But Shahzad Elmi, please ahead, go make your point.
When BJP attacks us, that why
Sure,
don't you go to the court?
sure, you made your point, sir. We have limited time. I have other
Yes,
panelists
well. Can
waiting
you
as
please
well.
keep quiet?
Shahzad Elmi, please finish your point so I can get in the three others waiting as well. Shahzad Elmi, go
I
ahead.
will not finish my point, and no. I would like to speak without any interruption.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Just like you allowed the TMC
Yes, please,
person
go
to
ahead.
do so. So, no man or woman, person from any gender, transgender, has any right to indulge in corruption. Clearly, Mahua Moitra herself has admitted having given her login ID and credentials to Darshan Hiranandani, a fact that he's admitted himself in an affidavit and to the court and to the state. Now, that itself is admission of what has transpired. Now, as for cash or kind, in lieu of the questions asked is a matter for everybody to know and see, because clearly there is corporate lobbying going on. One corporate is being targeted at the behest of other corporate interests, because there is conflict of interest in 50 out of 61 questions that have been asked. As we know, Mahua asked questions on telecom sector, on real estate, on energy, and also on the port trust. And all of these, there is conflict of interest with Hiranandani Group and that of Adani Group. At whose behest was Mahua Moitra doing this bidding? Is it as innocent as that? And are MPs allowed to give them login ID to close friends who actually are top industrialists, businessmen with an actual conflict of interest with the various states in the country and with the centre, and pointing to a particular business interest? So it is clearly a case of corporate lobbying and corruption. As for the cash component or the kind component, the fact of the matter is that Mahua Moitra, the login was used 47 times out of Dubai, UK and US, one by Darshan Hiranandani, admitted by both. And not just that, there were 36 foreign trips. Another lie that I want to call out, and I think it's very important, Mahua Moitra lies blatantly. Everybody has seen the transcript of the report. She was asked questions to: who sponsored your trip? Why did you go to Dubai? Where did you stay in Dubai? Talking about the financial aspects of it and not to any moral aspects of it. So please don't make it about man, woman and all of that.
No, Shazia ji, being a
will not
woman
help
also,
your
I'm
case
not
at all.
playing a
Yes.
woman card.
No, it is not help.
I'm
And
not
we
playing
know,
a woman
we
card.
know
Yes,
the
let's not
opposition-
let this debate not get digressed, please. We're talking about whether there was breach of conduct by a member of parliament, whether there was quid pro quo or not. And as far as quid pro quo goes, that is something that the CBI will investigate when there's a criminal inquiry that begins against her. There is already a preliminary inquiry which perhaps would be converted into an FIR now that the Lok Sabha proceedings are over. But Tehseen, if that quid pro quo does actually get proven at the end of that particular investigation, how does that fare for all those members of parliament from the opposition ranks who've today stood by her?
If my grandmother had an Adam's apple, she would be my grandfather. I mean, that is for, you're either pregnant or not pregnant. You can't be half pregnant.
Sure.
Similarly, when it has to happen, will happen. Look at the BJP spokesperson's argument on your show. The BJP spokesperson on your show just now said there was corruption and lobbying. Her words, you accept it? If there was corruption, as the BJP spokesperson said, it takes two to be corrupt. Why is Hiranandani not dragged from Dubai and in jail here? Why is Hiranandani's father given all contracts in Uttar Pradesh for the largest data center in India? Drag him,
he's
put
not
him
a
in jail.
parliamentarian.
Shazia ji, you expected no interference from TMC. I expect the same from you.
Yes,
Please
I'll
don't
come to
interrupt
you.
me.
I'll
Please
come
don't
to you.
interrupt
Let him make
Please
his
don't
points. I'll
interrupt
come
me.
to you for a rebuttal.
Please don't interrupt me. What do you expect?
Sure.
Please give that.
Sure.
So, if corruption exists, why is the person who's corrupt not called? Now, I didn't want to get into the ethics committee, but there are two affidavits. One from Jay, an ex-boyfriend of Mahua Moitra, who says he saw the quid pro quo. While he sees the quid pro quo as an officer of the court, he doesn't do anything. When a dispute reaches on another matter, he goes and makes a complaint. So he's a witness of it, but he doesn't make a complaint. Hiranandani's affidavit does not talk about a quid pro quo. He says, look, I've given her gifts. He doesn't say I've given her gifts in lieu of questions, because if he does, like I said, Hiranandani should be in jail. That's not happened. Now let's go to the ethics committee. Mahua Moitra goes to the ethics committee and she says, hey, there are two affidavits against me. Can I cross-examine? Shazia ji says these are an extension of parliament. Yes, but the Supreme Court judgment in Maharashtra and various other judgments say that these committees function as tribunals. Therefore, it is not parliament or court that is supreme. The Constitution of India, which under Article 14 says the right to equality before law. She wasn't given the right to cross-examine. Today, 12 o'clock, the report is tabled within 2 hours, a 495-page report. Everyone has apparently read it. Though the opposition said, we haven't read it. Still, the government read it. Fair point. All Mahua Moitra asks is, allow me to be heard. The right to be heard. This is the greatest country in the world that we live in. We are the mother of democracy. Why? Because this nation gave Kasab a free and fair trial in a criminal investigation.
Sure.
Please, Shazia, will you please allow me to
Shazia,
make my
let him
point?
finish.
Come
I'll
on,
come back
yaar.
to you. Shazia,
Come on,
30 seconds.
Shazia, have some
Shazia, help me
courtesy.
30 seconds. Tehseen, go ahead.
This is the greatest nation in the world. The greatest. We gave Kasab a free and fair trial in a criminal matter. All a woman is asking for is, hey, I wasn't allowed to cross-examine as per my rights in an ethics committee. Please allow me to speak. I am the accused here.
ahead.
The right to not incriminate yourself. The right to speak is a fundamental right. I again repeat, Parliament is not
Okay,
supreme.
but
Neither is judiciary.
it is in-
Constitution.
But then,
All
because you
constitutional
cited
provisions are
certain
valid.
judgments in the past, there have also
I
been
just want
times
to
when the
say
Supreme
something.
Court
The
has
most
gone on to
hilarious-
say that the Parliament and what happens
No, I
inside
want-
is the jurisdiction of the
Yes,
Parliament
but
to say
not
so.
in committees.
But,
Committees have to function as a tribunal.
Sure.
You know,
But
I just
Shazia
want to
Alvi,
say
yes.
something.
Yes,
Come
yes,
on,
Shazia Alvi, go
Shazia,
ahead.
Keep talking in between.
Poonam, this is the most hilarious gobbledygook we've heard in years.
You answer, please, on points, legality.
Really outsmarted you, even yourself. You know, and I can tell you why. Because first of all, this was ethics committee for parliamentarians for the MPs. Darshan Hiranandani is not a parliamentarian.
Jay was called.
Will be proven
How is
to
Jay a
be-
parliamentarian?
because
Have you
he
read
has
what
mentioned
he
the CBI. Be quiet, sir. Be
Please
quiet.
read and come in a
let me
debate.
prove
You're
to you how
representing the
hilarious
BJP.
You sound.
You're
How
representing the
hilarious you sound.
BJP.
So why
Jay
letting me
came
speak?
driving
Because
with
your bluff is
Nishikant
being called.
Dubey.
And
If
I mean, it's really
Hiranandani is not a parliamentarian, how is Jay there?
Why are you going
Please
on?
read and
Tessie,
come,
now
yaar.
it's my turn to speak.
At
Tessie,
least
you
make
made
an
many
argument
points,
that's
but
coherent
none of them make
and
sense.
factual.
I'm sure they
There
don't
is
make
no
sense
rule
either.
in a parliamentary
So listen,
committee
Tessie, let her
that
finish.
outsiders cannot
Tessie, let
come.
her finish. We have two other gentlemen also on the panel. Shazia Alvi, finish your point.
Tell her to show
I
me
just
the
want to
rule
say
that
make a
says
small
outsiders
point.
cannot depose
Darshan
before a
Hiranandani-
committee.
Sure.
I
So
will
is it in the
apologize
rule?
on national
Sure.
TV.
Sure. So Shazia Alvi, is it in the rule book?
Yes,
There's also
exactly.
something that Mahua said that
Exactly,
there are no specific rules as far as sharing of login or password is concerned.
So how did Jay come? How did Jay come? Answer.
This is based on Jay's complaint.
Arey to Hiranandani
Dubey is a
is
parliamentarian.
expecting? A very
Nishikant
basic
Dubey is a
expectation we have from the
parliamentarian.
parliament.
My dear friend,
We have a
you
very
are-
basic
you're really off.
expectation
I
from the
think you're really
parliament
off
and the
today.
speaker that she should have given a
You know, I
chance.
just
That's
want
it.
to- You know, I'm not being allowed to speak at all because this man is going on talking.
No,
Because
Shazia
I
Alvi,
haven't
Shazia Alvi,
called
one thing
you
that
interrupted.
everybody is raising,
I-
one thing that everybody is raising is that Mahua Moitra was not allowed to put her points forth. She was asked the kind of
I'm
questions
answering
that were
that. I'm
disgraceful
trying
in
to
the
answer
ethics
that.
panel.
That's
She wasn't
exactly
heard
what
back then. She wasn't heard today in Parliament before a decision was taken.
No, that is not true. No,
And
that is
Ramesh
not
Bidhu-
true.
and
Members who
Ramesh
were
Bidhu,
there,
he walked
and
free.
there's a transcript that is present.
Mr. Rahman, let Ms.
First
Ms.
of all,
Rizmi.
what we heard from the TMC person was
Mr.
a complete
Rahman, please
lie.
let her
No
finish.
obnoxious questions about morality were asked. They were about the financial transactions, sponsorship of the trips, duration of the trips to Dubai.
Shazia, you are
and
speaking
those are
the
the
truth.
questions which
Sure.
would make
You are
which
more
are
biased
the,
than
which
the
are the
Pope.
purview of
That's
the ethics
fine.
committee. Two, and most important, Tessie, stop talking. So I've exposed you
No, no,
because
you-
obviously
you-
don't
what
It
know
was
the
Mr.
specifics.
Rahman. Mr. Rahman, please
Not
let
to
her
Darshan
finish. I need to get the
Hiranandani
other two
because he's not
gentlemen
an
in
MP.
as well. We do not
Please.
have much time left. Shazia Alvi, go ahead. Please finish.
Shazia, your knowledge of panelists
Yeah, I mean,
is
it
as
was
bad as your
really,
knowledge of
it was
procedure.
hilarious, Tessie. You're really funny today. You've got a great sense of humor. I'm sure this is not your best. But I want, also the fact of the matter is that all 13 of the cases that have happened earlier, similar suspensions of MPs
Sure.
for far smaller misdemeanors. The same procedure has been followed even today, which was yesterday, which was followed in 13 times, including the time when Manmohan Singh was at the helm of affairs and was the Prime Minister, and when
Sure.
UPA had their speaker.
Sure. So there
nothing
has
very
been
shaky
precedent.
or crazy
There has been
happened.
precedent as
It is
far as
based on the
proceedings in the
recommendations
Parliament
of
are
the
concerned.
committee.
Ashwini Dubey, there have
Mahua
been
Moitra
proceedings,
says I had
proceedings
given
as
my
far
login
as court
credentials to
proceedings
Darshan
go as well.
Hiranandani,
But as
who
far
had
as court
conflict-
proceedings go, we've seen it go both ways. So what happens next if Mahua Moitra decides to use that legal recourse that she has?
Yes, she can file. There are legal options available for Mahua Moitra to challenge the decision of the Ethics Committee. Mahua Moitra can file an appeal against the Ethics Committee's decision. This by saying that the principle of natural justice has not been followed and there are loopholes in the procedures which has been adopted by the Ethics Committee. Then the second, she can also challenge the jurisdiction and conduct of the Ethics Committee. She can say that the committee overstepped its mandate and the proceedings were irregular, or she can also say that they conducted with the malice or prejudice. Third option is she can seek intervention through her party or independent avenues, and she can approach senior parliament or government officials alleging bias, prejudice, or any sort of malfeasance or ethics committee's proceeding. And last, she can file a defamation suit, which is also pending in Delhi High Court. And supposing if tomorrow in defamation court she succeeds, then she can ask for the reversal of ethics committee decision. The question is, 2 points. The criminality is being looked into by the CBI as per the orders of the Lokpal. And so far as the Ethics Committee's decision here, as per Rule 275, Sub-Rule 2 of the Procedure and Conduct of Business of the Lok Sabha, in the unethical conduct and contempt of the House has been proved, and there are divergent views of the court. In Sibu Soren's case, in 1998, Supreme Court said that under Article 105, Subclause 2 of the Constitution, the courts cannot interfere because that is the immunity granted to the Parliament.
Yes.
Second is, but Rajaram Pal's case, if you see, the different view have taken. Then if you see the Amarinder Singh's case, that is a different view taken. And now the Sita Soren's case has been referred to the 7 judges. So that issue is still pending. There are different views. But the question herein is, if principle of natural justice has not been followed and there are loopholes in the procedure, one can challenge it before the Supreme Court.
And that's perhaps where she is going to go as far as her legal recourse goes. But Anirban Banerjee, we've seen the TMC now come out in full support of her. This was after stunned silence in the beginning. For a long time, nobody from the TMC was willing to speak up for her. Now we have the TMC and everybody from within the opposition come out and fight for her against one common enemy, which is the BJP. Is this a thought out strategy, an electoral one for 2024?
No, the TMC was always backing Mahua Moitra. There were senior leaders from the TMC who had come out time and again and said that since she has been questioning the Adani-Modi nexus in the parliament, she is being targeted by the BJP. Later we heard Mr. Abhishek Banerjee and then Honorable Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee. They also gave some vocal support to her, but the party was always standing behind her. That's number one. Number two, in this case, the debate, the entire ruckus started with 2 terms. Cash for query, 3 words rather, cash for query. So the question remains in the 495-page report, where is the cash? Where is the evidence of cash? That's number one. Number two, then the BJP suddenly shifted their goalpost and they said that the login credentials, these were shared, she broke some rules and everything. When it was asked which exact rule was broken by sharing these login credentials, they have no answer. They suddenly again shift their goalpost and they say national security, national security. So if national security is such a concern, then why a Dubai-based businessman and his business house is allowed to invest in mostly BJP-ruled states? Is that not a threat against national security? And number three, we suddenly heard that Mr. Darshan Hiranandani has issued an affidavit to the Ethics Committee, to the Parliament, to I don't know who else.
Sure.
And then he goes completely silent. He is not summoned to the Ethics Committee. Nobody knows where he is right now, what he is doing. What about that affidavit? We do not know. No evidence to support that affidavit. And then lastly, regarding the Ethics Committee, this particular report, even before getting placed before the Parliament, almost a month back, got leaked into the media, right? So who exactly is responsible for that leakage? Will the chairman of the Ethics Committee be now summoned by some other Ethics Committee to look into this particular matter?
Sure.
I've just got a WhatsApp for the BJP spokesperson. He's repeatedly said on your show that everybody's read the transcripts of the Ethics Committee. This is not public. How does the BJP have it? Number one. So what Mr. Banerjee is saying is right. She's repeatedly said this on your show.
There
Number two. Number two, please.
Unfortunately, I do not have time, Tehseen, but Shahzad, 30 seconds to rebut that one question that he's asked.
How did you have a whip today? What is the reason of a whip? When did the whip happen in the past?
And that is something that Manish Tiwari also raised in the Lok Sabha today. Shahzad, I'll need 30 seconds for rebuttal. Yes.
Can I also... Yes. No, more than 30 seconds because many things have been said. So I will take my time because I was part of a show where parts of the transcript were read out. And no, it wasn't an Adani-owned channel in which the questions that were asked. I heard from Aprajita Sarangi, who is my colleague and who is a member of the committee, my dear friend.
So Ms. Sarangi gave you the inside reports.
And said no such questions. No, she told me that no such questions were asked as to
you said you read the transcript.
That is a figment of your imagination.
No, ma'am. You said on this show you read the transcript. How did you get it?
Channel. Tehseen, just because I've called out your bluster doesn't mean. And we just heard the TMC spokesperson here say
did you read
that
the
it's actually
transcript?
all right.
Yes or no?
It is all right to this. Which rule does Mahua Moitra? Let me finish. Don't keep heckling me. I've answered your question. I want the TMC, Anirban just said that is really all right. And according to him, and I want everybody in India to know that according to Tehseen Poonawalla of Congress and Anirban, it is all right for a member of parliament to give in your login credentials to a businessman who is actually
Please answer the question. How did you read the transcript?
For important projects. And not just that, no, let me finish.
How
let me embarrass
did you read
a
the
little bit more.
transcript, ma'am?
Not just that, look at the
Unfortunately, Shah Jalmi, I'm
questions.
completely out of
Look,
time on this.
Look,
There are questions that are many that
breaking
have
laws
come to the
that
fore as far as the
exist.
conduct of the ethics panel went, whether or not they exceeded their brief or not, when they decided to recommend this expulsion, and of course, then the expulsion that was adopted today in the Lok Sabha. There is legal recourse for Mahua Moitra to go forward from here, but unfortunately, I have to leave it at that. I thank all my panelists for joining us here on this broadcast. We are slipping into a quick break here on this edition, but on the other side, we have a very special segment coming in as far as online gaming is concerned. Should that be regulated or not? What are the ways to do it? That special segment coming up next.
Hello, Moto.
Movement that inspires.
Exposing India's detractors.
India is not a democracy.
What does the constitution mean?
Demolishing double standards. Debunking hypocrisy. Because India deserves better. The right stand. At this time on CNN News 18.
Movement that inspires.
News is everywhere, but so much of it is noise. But how do you make sense of it? How do you sift the grain from the chaff and get to the point that matters?
Proceedings, where the big stories are simplified, bite by bite. Weeknights at 9 on CNN News 18.
Movement that inspires.
News is everywhere, but so much of it is noise. But how do you make sense of it? How do you sift the grain from the chaff and get to the point that matters?
Proceedings, where the big stories are simplified, bite by bite. Weeknights at 9 on CNN News 18.
Investigation of the unethical conduct of Shri Mahua Moitra, MP, laid on the table of the House on 8th December 2023. एक मिनट सबको. Okay.
We don't have the copy of the motion. We don't have the supplementary
माननीय सदस्यगण, आज जिस विषय पर विचार किया जा रहा है वो विचार और प्रस्ताव जो माननीय संसदीय कार्य मंत्री ने रखा है वो हम सबके लिए पीड़ादायक भी है, लेकिन कई बार ऐसे अवसर आते हैं जब इस सभा को अपने प्रति, राष्ट्र के प्रति अपने कर्तव्यों के निर्वहन के लिए उचित निर्णय लेने होते हैं। माननीय सदस्यगण, संसदीय लोकतंत्र नियमों, उच्च मर्यादाओं से चलता है। ये सदन हमारे देश की सर्वोच्च पीठ है। पिछले 75 वर्षों की हमारी लोकतांत्रिक यात्रा में हमारे सदन की, हमारे लोकतंत्र की एक ऊंची मर्यादा स्थापित हुई है। पूरा देश उच्च संसदीय परंपराओं के लिए हमारी ओर देखता है। इन्हीं उच्च परंपराओं की बदौलत हमारे लोकतंत्र की पूरे विश्व में एक विशिष्ट पहचान है।
Namaste, Jai Hind, and welcome to this very, very special edition. Ladies and gentlemen, real money online gaming. Now, everybody has different perceptions about it. Is one the same as the other? Is something like an online betting or nefarious activities like the Mahadev betting app? Is it the same as something like fantasy sports where you choose your own team? The argument between game of skill versus game of chance, and the more important aspect of how can this be regulated? Can there be a separation and an identification, and can there be a certain level of regulation? So between the policymakers and the entrepreneurs who are being bunched up with some nefarious elements, there is a huge argument that is building. Now, the attempt in this very special broadcast is to get erudite minds who have not only pitched for a certain level of code of ethics or gaming regulations or self-regulation, but also perhaps how there can be a proper policy framework that allows those who are contributing to Bharat, those who are enabling a sporting culture and a sporting lifestyle in Bharat, and getting more and more youngsters engaged in sport. How can there be a proper operating space for them? So how do we create the divide? So let's go straight across to our guest, Dr. Gulshan Rai, former National Cybersecurity Coordinator, Prime Minister's Office, Government of Bharat. With us, Ramesh Kailasam, founder, India Tech, is joining us. And we also have Hitesh Jain, Parinam Associates, joining us. Namaste and Jai Hind to all of you. Thank you very, very much. If I may ask you, Rameshji, to first elaborate and to also explain to our viewers, when we say gaming, there is a certain perception. Now, what is perception and what is reality? If you can address that.
Well, Anand, I think you started off on the right note. This is a fundamental thing that I've been trying to educate people on ground. When I meet mental health activists, when I meet NGOs, when I meet parents, when I meet gamers, the fundamental question that comes in is, they see what they see on TV, and the presumption is that is what it is. For example, I came across somebody in Chennai where they said, this kid has been playing this shooting game for hours together, and a particular fantasy gaming platform is to blame, which had no connection to it, just because you are known to hear some brands on television and so on. So the perception is always been that real money gaming is the culprit. The perception is that it's all gambling and betting. The perception is that your kid, which plays a shooting game, killing people online, is the game that is being peddled across as real money gaming, when fundamentally all of these are different. And when there was a discussion in Parliament, we had shot as India Tech a letter to the IT Minister then, actually elaborating on the different genres of games that exist, what is allowed where. I mean, for a simple example being that you had esports, you had fantasy, then you had casual gaming. In casual gaming, you had casual games which were replicating real world games. For example, you could play Carom online, but Carom also has a federation. You have chess online, and you also have the chess federation. So therefore, you had real world games which were replicating in the virtual world. You had real world games not recognized by federations being replicated in the virtual world. You had virtual world games like Candy Crush and Fruit Ninja and so on, which only exist in the virtual world. So there was this distinction. And then, of course, you had also the likes of rummy, poker, gambling, betting, and so on. Many of which in the first few categories have been cleared as games of skill by various court orders, including the Supreme Court. And therefore, the question that came in that time was that how would in this country, a sector which is growing so big, live through so many misconceptions? I have in the past had worked with various other sectors which suffered with similar misconceptions like direct selling and so on, which have traveled some distance now. But gaming also was going through the same churn. And the interesting part, which founders whom we work with very closely and investors as such, as India Tech, one of the questions that was often asked was that how many more churns do we get there and still will we be tarnished? Will we get a regulation for ourselves and still be beaten up by the other ministry? And that's an often trend that we get to see. Will the center clear it, but will we still be whacked by the states and so on? Because they have their own interpretation of different kind of games of skill, games of chance, and what they perceive as gambling and betting. So the question, therefore, that came in is, can we come with a national level framework for this? And this was pushed by further the fact that investors asked one interesting question. Does it mean that every gaming company we invest in will have to go through the churn of somebody questioning it and the court clearing it? Which means that today we have 20,000 plus games going on. Does it mean 20,000 cases in court to prove yourself that, look, I'm clean and I'm a game of skill, and still you can be charged by the states? So that is what led us to work closely with the center and various ministries to see if we can come with a national level framework which defines all of this, or at least creates a rules-based approach. Now, we may not necessarily have, and you may have seen this in the case of OTTs, which went through the similar churn of questioning legitimacy and the content and so on, and now have a self-regulatory model which has come in. So I would stop at that, but that's a very valid question, that misconceptions will continue on, and it is for the government and the industry jointly to come with a framework that helps people also distinguish.
Gulshan Raiji, how is it that a base of nearly 500 million viewers, and there aren't checks and balances to sift those which are purely largely banking on skill versus those who are fly-by-night operators, or those who are perhaps running these scams or these operations which are purely on chance, and then creating the kind of problems in society on startup? Kahin to feedback from ground up is coming into the policymakers saying, "Ye betting mein parivar barbaad kar diye hain." This is where it comes from. That all of this then get butched into that which breaks up society or breaks up families or bankrupts families. Your thoughts, sir?
So one aspect, Ramesh has said it. He dealt purely with the domain aspects there, the aspect which you wanted him to dwell on that. Let me argue that concept purely from technology point of view. Okay. Now the technology is innovations are taking at very high speed there. Today you have, tomorrow you have, after something you have, and we are all shifting toward the platform economy. Every sector of economy, education, defense, everything is moving on a platform-based kind of things there. And we are now dealing with convergence of technologies. We are not dealing with one technology. You talk about the IT, or we are dealing with the convergence of technology. You have encryption, you have IT, you have a communication, and then you have emerging technologies built in over there. Now, this technology platform world over, because of the infusion of the AI and this kind of a technology, everybody says you regulate AI, and you cannot build a platform today without AI. You look at the financial sector, I mean, you know it better than me, that robotic process automation is the day. Every transactions in a capital market or a banking, they do the robotic process automation kind of a thing. So anyway, without getting into the betting or without into the game, there is a view worldwide, and worldwide governments are trying to do that they must regulate platform-based economy in a loose manner, which should benefit the public social development. At the same time, it should help the government to increase its market kind of a value or GDP. That's one aspect there. But if you look at there, now the games, we have been playing those games in a gully, mohalla, in community there, 4 or 5 people coming, physically trying to do that. That is still going on in spite of the ban and all kind of things there. But if you put that on the platform, see, in an online, ultimately, whether the government does or doesn't get, everything will shift to the platform there. It will shift there. And this is a much more different and requires a regulation in the sense that the viewers or the players can play from different parts of the location of the country, can play from different parts of the world there. Innovative new games can come up there. People don't know each other here and there. So there are chances of money laundering more. There are chances of other issues with the platform economy are more. It does require, it should be appropriately regulated there. If you regulate properly, the regulating model could be different, could be discussed there. But first, the need of regulation because of the emerging technologies, the devastating effect if we don't do that. I mean, you look at it there, the founder of the AI or founder of the windsurf is very aggressively saying you should regulate the internet there. I have gone through this. Ramesh is witness to that kind of issues. I have gone through. I wrote the IT Act and I've gone through those kind of a thing. But today, it is all everybody accept that there has to be a regulation. But the kind of a regulation need to be seen there. See, if you regulate, you can control. There are all gali mohallas, people are playing 4 or 5 people there. Okay. People know each other physically. Here, people don't know each other. Who's doing what, who's doing not there. Not only the issues are there, there's a platform, fellow can play mischief. The client on side also can play their own kind of things there. This will go on. It ultimately will go on. But if you regulate it, you can check it better. There will be a limited platform, centrally platform. You can get it better rather than going to gully mohallas and going to every street corner there. You can't regulate that. Families have been destroyed there also. There also, here also. But you have a better regulation. You can control the child. We may talk about all kind of a thing. You can have a better control. Rather than leaving it open, it will come. It will come. It has come. It is a worldwide phenomena. You cannot stop a technology.
So better than rather to adopt technology and then adapt ourselves, our own legal framework, so that we can better regulate it, rather than try and resist it or say turn a blind eye to it.
Internationally, Anand, internationally, everybody is trying to regulate AI. And this is the AI-based platform, AI-based ML platform. Everyone is trying to regulate the communication impact over there. This all.
See, at the end of the day, one of the arguments is it may be artificial intelligence, but somebody's coding it. So you can always put in safeguards there, which you can always put in, like they say, trip meters in the real world. You can put trips there, which can obviously say that thus beyond and no further. But let me just bring in Hitesh Jain. So, Parinam ke shodh ka parinam kya hua? I should ask you that, because how do you decide what is a game of skill? Because even in cricket, actual cricket on ground, 99% is skill, 1% is still lady luck or chance. So, is there a percentage where you would say that this, falls under game of skill? Because beyond a certain percentage, the involvement, and how do we create a legal framework that encompasses all aspects? That is technology, the finance aspect, the KYC or identity aspect, where the money is going, the taxation aspect, all of this, because it's multi-layered, as Ramesh was saying, Hitesh.
And then navigating the current legal framework of online gaming in India is a complex task, because it is an intricate tapestry of both the central and the state legislation. You have state list, you have union list, concurrent list, and there is a much more room for ambiguity also. Having said that, our judicial system has made significant stride when it has in recognizing the legitimacy of skill-based games. So if you are aware, in the last 5 years, plenty of petitions have gone, whether it is a game of skill, game of chance, and as far as various online games are concerned, by and large, bearing few, the Supreme Courts have clearly given a clear finding as to what constitutes game of skill and how it is different from game of chance. As far as fantasy sports is concerned, the Supreme Court opined on the fantasy sport also that it is a game of skill and it is no longer res integra. That was the wording of the Supreme Court. But having said that, I mean, in spite of the Supreme Court verdict and all, what we need is a cohesive, streamlined regulatory approach. Now, to that extent, if you will see the definition of real money online game in the intermediate guidelines that were issued, that was a turning point. It gives some sort of a clarity. The intermediary guidelines also provides a solution where they have provided a 3-tier approach. The 3-tier approach, and then importantly, they have also provided a mechanism by the government. Now, there can be one debate that whether there should be a 3-tier approach, as I mentioned in my report, or whether there should be a regulatory body that should be set up by the government only. So you have some sort of a ombudsman or someone who will look at the different kinds of the games and decide what is the game of skill and what constitutes betting. perceptionally, if you will ask me, there is a very thin line again between a game of chance, game of skill. You have seen what happens in Mahadev and all. What happens is, even if the games are clear straight line games, but the bad actors, what they want to do is they want to mix all the betting and this thing with something which is going correct, and then try to cloud the entire industry. What happens is the act of few bad actors cannot give the bad name to the entire industry. Having said that, the industry also looking at the perceptions regarding tax evasion, money laundering, and addiction, as mentioned by few speakers earlier. Industry will have to address all these concerns, not only from the regulatory point of view, but also from the perception point of view. It is very important that all these perceptions are addressed. So to that extent, we had suggested that there should be a code of ethics, and it should be implemented very strictly. So while the regulation will go hand in hand, but how the industry will self-regulate itself, how it will evolve a mechanism which is transparent, robust, which will address the concerns of tax evasion, money laundering, and addiction, will also play an important role when we decide what form of regulation will take the place. According to me, this is an evolving area. As far as technology is concerned, it is fluid. It is changing every 6 months. It is changing every second month. So can there be a straitjacket formula? I don't think so. But looking at the situation, the society, the regulations will have to be evolved. There will be certain principles. The principles will be very clear that, as I mentioned, strict KYC. It should not be a platform for money laundering. It should not be a platform for straight betting, because betting is illegal in India. So long as you are taking care of all these issues, and if you regulate, there will be no ambiguity, and you will have a sustainable growth in the online gaming sector.
One of the arguments is what is game of skill and what is game of chance. Now, for a lot of people in some states, rummy is a problem. But rummy is a game of skill. How is it a game of chance? There are money, right? And how do you regulate this? And especially when we're looking at fantasy sports, do you think calling them fantasy in itself is a problem? Because there are a huge number of youngsters who are involved. 200 million users, if my memory serves me right, is the latest data that says there's active engagement on certain platforms. Overall, about 500 million users, 500 million users. That's a lot of people. And how much money is riding on it? And how do we check this? So if you look at three-tier models, Hitesh, I'm going to start with you, and then Rameshji and Gulshanji, reverse comments. We have another 5-7 minutes, 10 minutes on the conversation. So explain this to me, Hitesh. What is a three-tier model? How much will these bodies who are actually being bunched together with the nefarious elements who are largely riding on the game of chance and perhaps running these rackets, how will these bodies regulate themselves? What is a three-tier model? And when does the government step in?
Well, I think in a three-tier model, ideally, if you look at OTT, let me give you an example. What is happening in the case of OTT where the three-tier model is there? First is the mechanism to deal with the complaints at the platform level. Then it is at the association level. And the third is the oversight mechanism by the government. Now, as you rightly mentioned, with so many players and with the line between game of skill, game of chance, possibility of betting, perception of money laundering. Now, it is very possible that every company will declare that their games are games of skill. Every association will say that this is a game of skill. And then under the game of skill, there can be a lot of problems. Now, this is the serious issues. Now, I think to deal with this problem, we have the Supreme Court principles that have clearly defined what are game of skill. The principles have been laid down by the court very clearly. So we have the guidance from the court. Second, in my view, insofar as real money online game is concerned, personally speaking, you will need a body which will be an element of the members of the who are of the online gaming industry, but it should also involve an oversight mechanism at the first level itself by the government authorities also and few independent people. So there should be an independent body which will have no conflict of interest, which will really decide what will be the game of skill or what is the real money online game as opposed to the betting. It is very important because then only you can deal with the issue of perception. Otherwise, the perception is these people will form the association, they will declare themselves as a game of skill, and then under the game of skill, you will the betting and other activities will continue. This is the most important perception which needs to be addressed. And for that, both the industries have to, first, as I mentioned, it is very important that you come with a code of ethics, which will encompass all the measures in which you can weed out all the bad actors. You can deal with the issues of tax evasion and money launderings are concerned. Put your house in order, then go to the regulatory authorities. You should also allow the room for independent people to participate in the body so that the issues of perception can be addressed. And then genuine real money, you have to weed out the real money online game from the betting aspects are concerned. And then the body will have the task, how the body will function, the decisions that will be taken will determine the credibility of deciding what is real money online game and what is as against the betting apps.
Who bells the cat, Rameshji? Let me ask you this. Who bells the cat? And
well, I think if you look at the OTT model, seems to have got some house in order and so on. But the question that comes here, as Hitesh rightly pointed out, is that if you look at the governance mechanism, and let's look at the scale of the problem today, you have close to 1,000 plus startups operating in the gaming space. You have more than 20,000 plus games that existed as of yesterday in the variant form. If the government were to take upon itself, and this was a question that we debated upon during the OTT times as well, that if the government were to put it through the censor board, it is their grandchildren who will be still clearing yesterday's content, because that's the quantum of content that is sitting there. And we have the same problem in gaming, where you have 20,000 plus variants already sitting as of yesterday. So does it mean that the government will have to set up a machinery looking game after game? There is no capacity there right now to do so. Neither are people in the market so much in availability who will be able to distinguish in the way we are. The fact that there are a very few bunch of people even understanding what the variants are, what the game of skill, game of chance arguments are. Therefore, you have a very limited kind of a bench strength available. And therefore, it becomes important that you follow a rules-based approach, which is prescribed by the government. You also have an SRB model, which has its nuts and bolts tightened, but loosened to the extent that it doesn't need everything to come to the government.
Movement that inspires.
Exposing India's detractors.
India is not a democracy.
What does the constitution mean?
Demolishing double standards. Debunking hypocrisy. Because India deserves better. The Right Stand. At this time on CNN News 18.
Movement that inspires.
What does the constitution mean?
How can we educate a 60-year-old man?
Why beat around the bush? It's time to say it like it is. To brush aside political correctness and present the real picture with clarity and candor. Because there's only one side that matters.
Plain Speak with Shivani Gupta, only on CNN News 18.
Investigation of the unethical conduct of Shri Mahua Moitra, MP, laid on the table of the House on 8th December 2023. एक मिनट सबको. Okay.
We don't have the copy of the motion. We don't have the supplementary motion.
माननीय सदस्यगण, आज जिस विषय पर विचार किया जा रहा है,
Good evening, this is Rastak Samzaka Jacob. TMC Member of Parliament Mahua Moitra was today expelled from Parliament for indiscretion and breach of ethics as well as parliamentary privileges. She is accused of compromising her parliamentary login credentials with a businessman who accessed it from multiple locations abroad. The second accusation against her is that this businessman paid her in cash and in kind for questions that she asked targeting the Adani group. Mahua's defense is that this entire thing is simply a concoction